So in this legally and ethically, our objectives is to identify and respond to legal requirements, to know how to identify and meet these ethical responsibilities, how to contribute to workplace improvements, and to gain skills and knowledge for this unit. Just want my screen that I don't have to look over there. I gave you, did I? No, sorry.
When she signed in, I think it's cornered inside the weather under the sign sheet.
Oh, okay. You gave them back to me. That whole parcel. Take the whole lot, yeah. Sorry. I stole them back. Okay, so chapter 1.1, so identify and access, interpret, and the sources of information about legal requirements that applies to our job role. This overview of the legal system, I start with that. You know, it's actually sometimes quite surprising how little we sometimes know about that. There's two major sources of law in Australia. We've got case law, and then we've got concurrent powers, executive powers. It's about main laws. The sources of law means that most of our laws are court-made laws. With other words, the laws are in the High Court of Australia. When Parliament sits about any laws that has to be adjusted, it still goes through the court system, and the High Court will ultimately decides whether a law has been approved or not. On federal level, the court deals with bankruptcy, any corporation industry, but like with the HK Commission, the commissions, all the commissions, the banking commissions, all of those are run through federal courts. Trade and tax laws and stuff are on the federal courts. Then we have the family law, the family court, which and for us in Queensland is sitting in Townsville. I think, yeah, yeah. So if we have any family issues, it's usually you do your application through Townsville, through the family court, and then they make special hearings. So the judges comes from elsewhere to come and deal with court sessions, family court sessions in Mackay. It's not the Mackay court's judges. Then we have the state and territory courts, which would be the courts that it's got the executive, exercise the federal authority issues related to federal legislation. And then, of course, we've got our local courts that deal with local, criminal court processions that are sometimes can be major. There could be corporations also, so be sued, and that goes through the local court system. In the legal system, federal government deal with our income support, foreign affairs, defense, customs, currency, and immigration. I always understand it like this, and I had to learn the Australian court system because it is slightly different to my Namibian court system, because we have got a president and you are under it's under the British court system, which functions a tiny bit differently. And then with state and territories, we in Namibia is just one country, and we don't have state and territories like you have in Australia. But understand, and I made myself understand it in this way, that on federal level, if you talk about income support or you talk about foreign affairs, defense, customs, you go, it's the Australian dollar. You go, it's the Australian Defence Force. So it's in the name. You hear it in the name. If you talk about state welfare, water, energy, justice, we say Queensland Health or Queensland Transport, so it's kind of like in the name. You can understand, like the Queensland Police Force. Both state and federal, some of our education is through a national level and some of it is on a state level. Health as well, so we have Queensland Health, but there is, we've got NDIS, which is on a national level, as well as our Medicare and things like that goes on to a national level. On both state and federal, as well as all our Indigenous affairs, that goes through that, housing and stuff like that as well. In legislation, we have equal opportunity legislation. We have that prohibits discrimination on the grounds of employment, race, marital status, pregnancy age, disability, sex. We have the occupational health and safety legislation that's aimed at improving workplace safety and reduce costs associated with work-related incidents and accidents. Those are like Workers' Comp Australia, Workers' Comp Queensland. You can link on there if you have any, injuries at work. Tina, and then we have industry code of practice. So for us, one of the printouts that I have given to you is the Queensland Health code of practice, which is our main code of practice that we operate underneath. And I will go through a bit of it just now. That sets the guidelines for quality of services, the expectations that that's held up to us. How do we behave? What is, expected from us? Then we have duty of care. Now, duty of care comes under the tort law. Duty of care is about the safety and the well-being of someone else, and it applies to all care workers that's responsible for children, patients, clients. It applies to employees. It applies to the police. We all have to operate under a code of conduct that applies whenever we deal with human beings. Really, we have to take reasonable duty of care. On the common legal issues, harassment, discrimination. So these are the things that can go wrong in our workplace, and we could be, struggle with or face challenges in, which is unfair dismissal, copyright issues when for example, most of the wording or most of the slides that I make are from the training.gov, but I make my own little, use some of the books some of the information that's in your books, and I add it in here, and some of the information I get from online. And if I ever leave here, there'll be a copyright issue if I continue to use this material without excluding what is specifically in these books, unless it's public information, that comes off any of the government sites, which most of this does. But other copyright issues as well, if you work and your company has a really good form to fill out something, and you go to another company and they don't have that form, and you go and copy that form and take it with you, that might be a copyright issue. For us, when you reply in your questions and answers, if you any level above a Cert 3, Cert 4, diploma level, any level above a Cert 3, there is a much bigger requirement for not copying something directly and using direct copying, and not using referencing. So when you copy something off online and you print it, paste it into your work, and you do not put a reference there to that copy, that could be, you could be sued for copyright issues there. Within the Cert 3 level, they're not so strict about it, but it's still expected from you to a certain level to paraphrase some of your answers, not to claim it as your own work. But quite often the questions are asked in like, give your opinion of your view of this question, and then you can go look at the example answer, and you have to then interpret it into what do you understand about it, what is your view on it, and then that is accepted. But in saying that, you do not have to go reference everything you say on a Cert 3 level. If you go to uni, you actually do a whole course on plagiarism and copyrights and things like that before you even start uni. So it's not because you're not being, you haven't been taught how to do cross-referencing. It's not part of our course. it's not really expected from you. But at the same time, I do enjoy it when you do paraphrase a little bit. It also helps to, um, just think something through, spend that extra 10 minutes on a sentence and just, um, think about it a little bit, and it just sets it a little bit um, better in your brain for better wording. But it just helps you to retain some of the information. You go through quite a huge volume of work in a short period of time. Yes, we do repeat ourselves a lot, but some of the concepts and stuff is really important to remember, and it's good if you can paraphrase and try to memorize it in some way or the other. Um, Most of us are, old, except for Nicholas. He's still under 20. 26 already, Nicholas. You look so much younger than that. But, in the 80s and that, how old are you, love? You also in your 20s? 29. In the 80s, we were expected to memorize our work, in school. We used to write exams and sit exams, and we used to memorize like parrots before you go in there. It's not open book. It was a challenge, hey, to it's so much easier these days to study. You've got the open book in front of you,
Memorize the multiplication table.
Oh, I remember memorizing a question about the Industrial Revolution in England, and there was points I had to memorize on it, and I had it to a T. Hey, I remembered all of it. When I got to school the next morning, I thought, hit a blank. Boom! I got 8% for that for that exam because I just forgot. And when I walked out of class after the exam, it all came back. And I thought, never again. I'm not I'm not memorizing that again. That's for the chickens. Um, so yeah, though these things can happen to us. We can also this duty of care neglect we can face issues in regard to that, and I'll talk a bit about duty of care in a little bit. Types of law, we have criminal laws where we can actually be charged by the state. So when you go to court, there's a police prosecutor that charge you with a criminal offense. Now, duty of care can fall under a criminal offense. If you have a person that lives with you and you lock them underneath your house and you don't give them any food, you can be charged, for it's a criminal offense. But some of the duty of care is not as clear cut as that, so it falls a little bit on a different law to a criminal law. Then there's civil laws, and duty of care probably falls a bit under the civil law, where another individual can sue you. So you're caring for somebody, and that person's family members reckon you're not doing a good job, and they want to sue you. These days, a lot of times, individuals like us are getting sued, not companies anymore. The lady from the union was here a few weeks ago, and she spoke to us about that specifically. They've seen a huge increase on individual civil suits towards care workers, where family members felt that you didn't do a good enough job or you did something wrong, and they sue you instead of suing your company. That's why it's so vitally important that you join the union, because at least you have a lawyer when that happens. And there are some individuals in town that are on the NDIS that are hopping from one company to the next company to the next company, that are abusing care workers, that are shouting abuse when the care workers never done it, never offended them in any way. How do you prove it's you are there in that house all by yourself with that person? It's your word against theirs. You don't have proof unless you wear a body cam, which you're not allowed to because you're doing personal care. There is no proof. And then when you do get called in and you get disciplined on such an issue, you have no right to call and say, well, has this person done it to anyone else? They said, oh, that's private and confidential. It's got nothing to do with you. But if you are part of the union have the right to call on those documents to be revealed if it becomes a legal matter.
So if you go and care for them, they give you history of the client. They don't tell you.
Sometimes,
Not by law.
no, sometimes they don't. No, because some of our clients, you might look after a schizophrenic person. Then you take that risk in looking after that person to know that this person can tell fibs and hear voices and, but that's about the history you get,
And as you say, stay on the care plan.
Yeah. Yeah, as well as if there is any issues, there's been issues that I've been in, like, getting accused of doing something that, you didn't break the law, you didn't do anything. And then you get called in and you get disciplined, or there's an attempt in discipline. And unless you have the union standing, and I always say, your reputation is very easily damaged. Something might not go onto your blue card, but it hurts you emotionally, and then it will take years for you to recover from that, because you walk with that. It bothers you, and it doesn't bother somebody that is abuser. It bothers the ones that is not.
Yeah.
So you walk with that hurt in your heart, and you have to care for people and go back and face things, and it becomes really hard when you haven't done anything wrong. I had a student last year. She was accused in one of the care companies of a lady that has done that to other people, that she was too rough with her. All she done is take her legs off the couch and moved her legs from the couch to the floor. And she was accused that she was too rough. She was called in. She was asked to resign. It never went on a blue card. It was never proven. That lady is known for doing that. This poor woman, she's lovely. She's in her 20s. She's a beautiful, beautiful person. She went and she crawled into a caravan. She's got a caravan at one of the caravan parks, and she crawled in a caravan. She stayed in there for 2 years. She refused to come out. And she was in the class quiet for about 2 months. And then the one day she said to me, have I told you what happened to me? And when she, I just wept with her, because the hurt was so real to her still. Um, Then after, when she started with placement, then the company that was helping her with the placement, the lady called me. She said, did you know what happened to her? I said, you dare say that? That wasn't on her blue card, so why are you even mentioning it? Put my name in as a reference. Don't even reference that company. That is just bull dust as far as I'm concerned. People are getting bullied in the industry, and you have to be aware of that. So, and it's easy to step into that. It's easy to be accused of that. And if you don't have the union on your side, you stand alone. You try call the ombudsman. You sit on the phone for 3 hours. You don't even get through to speak to a human. You sit and listen to their little songs they play and whatever they say. You can't get through. So if you don't have a representative, or you don't have somebody to help you to enforce even just which is law, you pretty much are the one that's going to get the short end of the stick. It is really, really hard, and it's real. It's real. We work with people, and we go in there by ourselves. So we need to be aware of these pitfalls. We need to be aware that these things exist. So there's legal rights and responsibilities, and there's rights and there are responsibilities within the aged care standards, quality standards that are up there, and we'll bring that up in a minute. There are rights and there are responsibilities. We always hear a lot about the responsibilities, but we very seldom hear about the rights. Last week we spoke a little bit of our rights, and Thelma was saying, oh, I could never do that. I couldn't leave my client if they, obviously we have a duty of care towards that client. I have one student he said he had a guy, and I might have told you about him, that was quite aggressive, that was chasing him, and he just got in his car and he kept him in the rearview mirror, and he kept putting a bottle of water out like every 100 meters, and he just kept him in sight. And he just drove slowly while this guy was chasing him, trying to hit him with something, and he was just, just keeping far enough so he couldn't get hurt, and he just tired the guy out. But he kept his duty of care by hydrating hydrating the guy while he was, on his rampage, So it happens, and there's a lot of clients with mental health issues that we are going to be looking after. So you're gonna have some of these issues, some of the things that I've seen in dementia, some of the challenges that I've faced looking after dementia clients. It's scary. It's really scary. Some of them can get up to really, really scary things. I had a client that tried to smother another client, put a pillow on her head and try to smother. And luckily we had cameras and we saw this client went into that room, and we could, go and check up on what's happening. I had one client, we did a round, and at about 9 o'clock, and then we got busy with another client that's quite violent, and he soiled himself everywhere. We got busy in his room, we got stuck in his room. I was working afternoon shift, and then by 11, when night shift arrived, we were still busy in this client's room. We were still cleaning him up. And the other client, we did the rounds on, he had fallen out of his bed, and he had actually died in that 2 hours, and we didn't know about it. And we were busy in another room. There's only two of us. There's 32 residents in that area. So that client had died in his room. By the time night shift came, he was ice cold. So, he'd lied on the floor. He must have just fallen out of the bed not long after we have done our rounds. He died from a heart attack or something, but if we were close by, if we knew that he fell, we could have saved his life, and that can become a legal issue. We can get sued for that because we didn't check up. It's a care home. Somebody lying on the floor for two hours. I went back for a shift a month or so ago, and there was a whole story about the one care worker. She was saying that one of the clients fell out of the bed, and she had fallen. The bed is quite often in the middle of the room, and she had fallen out of the bed on the back side. So she was between the bed and the window, and the bed was made and was in a sitting position. The bed was, the head was lifted up, and they went around at 3 o'clock when we arrived afternoon shift. We go around and we check everyone's rooms, and she went around and checked everyone's rooms, and this lady wasn't in bed, but the bed was made, and they didn't see her behind the bed. They didn't actually go into the room. They thought, oh, maybe she went out, or maybe she's in the lounge, and they kept going. And at 5 o'clock, when they started looking for her for dinner, they couldn't find her. So 2 hours again, she was on the floor. Then at 5 o'clock only, they realized, well, where is she? She's not in the lounge. She didn't sign out. Where is she? And then they only started looking for her. And then they found her in the back of the bed. And there was an RN that did a round after the AINs went and did a round. And nobody thought to check behind the bed. Nobody thought to connect the dots, go to the lounge first and check, So there was a big hoo-ha about that. There was, a lot of, you can get disciplined for not checking properly. So, these things easily happen. We're not talking about abuse. We're talking about, things go wrong. Again, they were short-staffed. There was, I think, 3 on duty. There's meant to be 5. There's only 3 of them. There's 60 odd residents in that area. So, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. And especially if you work in aged care, there's a lot of pressure. Aged care's funding is so much less than what NDIS funding is. We just don't have enough staff on the floor to take real responsibility. So we talk about disability standards, we talk discrimination, harassment, equal opportunities, equal employment opportunities, freedom of information. So identifying things that is within our scope of practice and a nature of our own legal rights and responsibilities. So knowing your job description, go and look at what is your job description, talk to management, go look at the standards of the service. The union are in your books. It's mentioned in your books. I'm not just mentioning the union because I'm a union member. I'm mentioning the union because it's part of our training to mention it. I have found information on the union. We have two unions in Queensland. This is the biggest one. It's called the Queensland Midwives and Nurses and Midwives Union. That's the union we would fall under as care workers because we are classed as assistant in nurses. So there's some flyers here on knowing your rights when the police are called. Where I had we had an incident a few years ago where one of the care workers, she was lovely. She was such a hard worker. She was so involved, really, really hard worker. We all loved working with her. And then she went into this one client's room. He had frontal lobe dementia. He was only young. He was only in his 60s, late 50s, maybe 55 or something. Yeah, 15. Anyway, he was a young person, a young man, you know, young onset dementia, and he was very aggressive, always very abusive towards us, you know, always swearing at us, hitting us, and stuff like that. So she went into this client's room and got him up with the stand-up lifter, put him on the shower chair, pulled him in the shower, and he was actually nice to her. And she showered him and he died. He had a heart attack on the shower chair. So then they called the police because he's so young. So they had to lower him down on the floor. The coroner and the police are called automatically when people are under a certain age. And she was interrogated by the police. Now, for one, she's not Australian, so she's got a really, really thick accent. And, you know, she just, you know, you know, it's not her fault. And then she was interrogated for hours. And the thing she said to the police, oh, he was really nice to me. He was saying thank you and please and thank you, you know. And what she meant is what he was acting out of character, because normally he would be swearing at you. But the police don't understand her, and she didn't have the ability to communicate that properly. She was kept on shift. I arrived at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She was still there. This happened at 8 o'clock in the morning. She wasn't sent home. She was interrogated. She carried on working under those conditions. It braked her. Where before she used to be so helpful, it was so nice to work with her. Now she's a dead space. She's still there. She still works there. She's one of the worst workers to work with. She's got no care factor whatsoever. She doesn't go out of her way anymore. It's like I couldn't care less because nobody cares about me. So why should I care? You know, this is just a job. Where before she used to go the extra mile for all of us. You know, she used to be fantastic to work with. So when the police are called, it does something to you. It does something to you. It's not nice when you ever land up in that situation, and it happens. We work with human beings. Their hearts stop. People die. You know, we work with caring for people in palliative care that are passing away. You know, it's part of our job, and we have to be aware that, you know, it's going to happen. It's fine. We can deal with that because we accept that it's part of our job. But when the police gets thrown in the mix, it's not so nice. I didn't sign up for that, you know. So please join the union. It's $14 a fortnight, and it will be the best $14 you spend if you ever land up in that
Do they
situation.
have all the information on that pamphlet?
There's some, no, there's different there's just different pamphlets, different types, ratios about HK, preparing a statement for a coroner, making statements, social media, different types, ratios, essential, yeah, there's some essential information for nurses and midwives who are assaulted at work, positive practice, it's different types of, yeah. members' reputation. If you just, any of these flyers, even if you just Google QNMU, it comes up straight away with the Nurses Queensland Midwives Union, and there's a sign up, big blue sign up button on the front page, and it's very easy to sign up. You just sign up as students, and it's $7 a week, $14 a fortnight. So, and once you work more than 30 hours, it goes up to $19 a fortnight. So it's still, there are other unions that are cheaper, but this midwives union, we have representatives in Mackay, so it's easy to.
Mama Letta, so when we apply, we are students, but how if you're already working?
Well, you're not working as a nurse.
No.
No, so you apply as a student nurse.
Already as in like Kartika is now working.
Yeah, well, she will go over into that. She's not the trainer. She's not a student anymore, so she'll go up. She'll, depending on how. Yeah, no, she'll change it. She'll have to go in and change it. Yeah, but it's less than 30 hours, so she's still student until 120 hours is done. So as long as you do the logbook, you're still classed as student. So, and when that's done, you can just go and update it. You get a little profile that you go on and you can update it. So information that you need as well, your colleagues can help you with information. Workplace policies. Now, policies and procedures are a really thick manual that sits somewhere in a shelf in the office somewhere. It has information about all sorts. So workplace policies and procedures are written policies that is consistent with the values of the organization, complies with the employment and other associated legislation. It's normally drawn up by lawyers, and and it normally includes all the work health and safety laws and all the equal rights and disability laws and aged care laws. All of those are included in those. It demonstrates the organization, how it's operated. It ensures uniformity and consistency. So if we all do the same thing, it's quite essential, because sometimes when you work, especially in the community, you have a client and you do something, you like trying to aim to get this client's diet sorted, and then the next person comes in and they take them down to Macca's. And the clients actually place you up against each other, so we need to try to be on the same page and try to have a consistency among us. So policies and procedures would be in place for that reason. Yes, the client can get what the client wants, but we do try to encourage them to change their minds sometimes, to get for their benefit. So, and policies and procedures will add strength to the position of staff when legal actions arise. And I've used Good Shepherd's policies and procedures whenever they booked me on in a shift that I didn't want, because in one of their policies and procedures, they actually have quoted from the website for the ombudsman that says that they're not allowed to give you a shift that you didn't agree with, that you did not agree about, So they can't just throw you with a shift that you've never done and suddenly say, can you shift on Sunday? No, I can't. I've never worked on a Sunday,
But when you're called when there's short stuff,
they still need to negotiate. When they call you, you need to agree. They can't just slap you on there. You need to agree. Yes, I can. They call you. They say, a shift is available. Do you want to take the shift? Do you want to take it? You agree. Then you say, yes, I will take the shift. But if you don't say yes, they can't just book you on. And some companies do, but they can't actually, because the ombudsman say they can't. They have to clarify. It has to be a mutual agreement. You have to also, and when you fill in the availability form, that's a legal document. And they have to keep with that document. If you belong to the union and you go to Tracy, I can give you the quote I have sent her in an email, very friendly, and say, well, and they know I'm part of the union because I'm always part of the EBA agreements. But if you send that quote to and say, well, within our EBA agreement and in our policies and procedures, it says, and you copy that sentence out of there and send it to it. Sometimes they take advantage of the fact that we don't know.
But how if Mama Letting have a shift and they cancel it?
I don't know. If you've got agreement for a certain amount of hours, if you're employed for a certain amount of hours, they have to keep with that agreement. If you don't have agreement, then they can can be flexible, and it can be seen that you are flexible. So if you have only 19, what do they do? They employ you on 18 hours. What is the permanent part-time employment contract? 18 hours. Yeah. But you can ask for a contract that has 30 hours or 60 hours on it. You can. It's your right to go and say, okay, could I have a contract for 60 hours? I have been working 60 hours for the past 6 months. Please can you update my contract to be this? I need that, and always use it for a different reason. Maybe not to say to them that you can't stuff me around, but say, well, I'm going to the bank to buy a house. I need a contract that says, I've got 60-hour contract. Because you can use a contract in that case, to prove that you are permanently part-time employed. There's not always answers, and there's a lot of companies breaking the rules. But it's not always easy to challenge them, because a lot of people it's just too hard. It goes in the too hard basket, and you just go like, no, this is too hard. I'm going to lose my job. And they do like saying, oh, you don't like it? There's the door.
Yeah.
They do like say that one, but they don't say that to somebody that belongs to the union. Because you say, oh, could you put that in writing? And then they'll change their minds. So these things are meant to be fostering stability and continuality. It maintains direction for the organization, especially if there's some changes happening. Provides framework for business planning, and it assists in performance and establish accountability. It clarifies our function and responsibilities. So it's really important piece of document. And when you start working, take some time out. It's really to your benefit to read the policies and procedures. Just page through it and check what's in there. It's very interesting reading, actually, because you'll discover things in there that you didn't know. I bet you will. And because it's their legal requirements that they have it. Some companies hide them. You don't know where they are. But yeah. Identify and respond to legal requirements, adhere to legal requirements in work practice according to policies and procedures, and cite your scope of practice. Now, this is another section that are being, what's the right word? People are getting these expectations on care workers, and especially if you go out in the community, to do medication. And they call it assist with self-medication. It's only self-medication if that client, yes, you can break the tablets out of the Webster pack, but if that client cannot, you put it on his hand, if that client cannot put it in his mouth himself, it's not self-medication anymore. And I'm going to talk about the scope of practice in a minute because it highlights it as well. So the level of support needs to meet our duty of care requirements, but it means that to ensure that the clients receive adequate care in all departments. This includes the tasks that you complete yourself or tasks completed by colleagues and tasks completed by the clients. We're also responsible, sadly, for our colleagues. Okay? If you come into a house and your client's sitting there and he's feces and they've already dried on his bottom and he's wet as anything, and morning staff didn't do their job, it's your responsibility to go and clean that client up and care for that client. Morning staff might have had a big fall. Something might have happened. There might have been a fire drill, or something might have happened. Ambulance had to be called and the client was neglected. It's then our responsibility to pick up the slack. We cannot just leave that client and say, well, that wasn't my job. You know, we are responsible for whatever we find. If you walk into a house and dishes wasn't done, nothing was done, nothing. If it's a repeated thing, then we will make a complaint about, you know, who's the people that were there before us. But if it's a once-off thing, we obviously just pick up the slack. You know, it becomes our responsibility to pick up the slack. We can't just go, oh, it's not my dishes, I didn't, you know, and leave it like our kids do. We just can't. We have the responsibility to pick up the slack. Duty of care in law comes under the ruling of the tort law. So it's a civil wrongdoing and it's opposed to breaching a contract. It requires individual to provide a standard of reasonable care while carrying out any activities that could potentially harm others. Breaching of duty of care means that you as an individual are liable for legal action for the claimant. Normally under the tort law, it is a financial what's the word? Retribution. That you would have to then pay that person, they'll take you to court and, you know, you'll get charged $20,000 because of medical bills or, you know, some other reason. Mum's bum got so burned because she didn't change her pad and then she was sitting there for 3 hours and then the daughter comes in and she's really angry and she sues you and say, well, I had to take her to the hospital and I had to do this and I had to do that and really thicken it up and, you know, and her emotional state and she had to go see a psychiatrist and it becomes a really big thing and then, oh, okay, $20,000 later, you're paying for the next 3 years because mum's bum was dirty, you know, so that's what it means under the tort law. So recognize potential and actual breaches and report to according to policies and procedures. Privacy is applicable to many aspects of your client's life and key examples of how privacy should be maintained and promoted includes training, all staff properly about privacy, restricted access to records and information about the client's appropriate personnel, respect the client's personal relationships with others. People have the right to have relationships. It doesn't matter if they are 90 or they are 17, they have the right for that. Respect the client's sexual relationships and give them relevant privacy. Give the client choice as interpreters when required. Ask permission before entering their personal space. Always knock. Always pull the curtains closed. Always cover your clients up. I never go and shower anyone if I don't have 3 towels. I don't work with only 1 towel. And it annoys the heck out of me when people do. It just does, because you cannot cover somebody up and protect their privacy with just 1 towel. I just, you know, just don't get it. I always have 3 towels. So what? You can throw it in the washing machine and wash it and hang it up, you know, or, you know, some laundry services are there. So we all have our job to do and we do it the best we can. I've been in trouble by kitchen because I use their cups and they don't have enough cups, and then I get in trouble because I've used the cups to feed people water and I'm in trouble because they don't have, and then I get shouted at and I was like, what's wrong with you? Oh, you know, and I'm like, okay, well, you know what? We all have jobs to do. So that's your problem and this is my problem, you know? It's the same with shifts rostering on. The shift clerk, the roster clerk has a job to do. You have a job to do. When you go and do your job and you're standing there and there's feces up the wall and you got it all over your hands and, you know, and it's about to get on your uniform, you're not calling the roster clerk to come and help you, are you? She will just tell you it's not my job. So why does she make it your job when they short shift, when they short staff? It's not your job. She should sort it out. If you've worked your fair amount of shifts, I show up when I have to show up. You know, it's not my fault if somebody else didn't show up. It's not my problem. It really isn't. You know, I couldn't care less. When I'm there, I do my best and I give my 100%. But if I'm not there, I don't care. When I walk out that door, I don't care. And if you don't put that attitude on, you're going to burn out. You're going to be misused and you're going to burn out. Because they spot the softies, hey? They spot you. They know. And they milk you. I've had some people working with me 14 days in a row. And I go, why? Why don't you say no? I can't say no. Why? And she goes, oh, I've got no one else. You know what? It's not my problem. It really isn't my problem. You know, I don't even pick the phone up. Then she bullies other people. Why don't you pick the phone up when I call? She never says it to me, you know. She knows who to bully into saying that. You know, it's not your problem. You need to put yourself first and, you know, and do what you can do, the best you can do. When you're there, you give 100%. When you're rostered on, you make sure you're there 10 minutes before the time. You work until the end, you know, you give your best. You neat and tidy when you go. You don't disrespect anyone when you're there. But when you're not there, it's not your problem. You have to do that, because people that work 14 days in a row, you know what happens? You land up in the hospital, or you land up quitting. Because you just, it becomes too much. You'll end up quitting. And then you'll end up quitting. You'll end up walking out, you know, instead of getting to that point where you actually end up quitting, or you'll end up burning yourself out. Why don't you just preserve yourself on the way there? And, you know, just be sort of strict about what you do for yourself, you know, look after yourself. I'm not trying to be silly. I'm not trying to be wayward, or, you know, I talk about experience, and I'm telling you, it's not hard to burn yourself out. It's not hard to get to a place where you're so exhausted you can't sleep. It's not hard. We are all human, and we have, and that onus falls back on you, not onto your management, and, you know, it's your problem, really. So recognizing these breaches, discussing your clients outside of the work context, leaking sensitive information to third parties, ignoring duty of care responsibilities, not including clients' decision-making in the process. That is part of the Queensland Health Code of Conduct as well. Not protecting confidential documents, opening somebody else's mail, not providing equal opportunities, not providing single-sex bathrooms, and negligence towards your clients. Identify, access, and interpret sources of information about you. No, I swear I put some of those things in there yesterday. Sorry, I just have to have a quick look here. Oh, it's coming up. Okay. Chapter 2, identify and access, interpret sources of information about ethical responsibilities that applies. Code of ethics, a professional code of ethics as an expected behavior of workers. In the workplace, it provides consistency, credibility, and professional practice. It also ensures that the client's rights are protected. It gives workers a framework to base their behavior on, and behavior and decisions on, and what is best for the client. It outlines the responsibilities to clients, their families, colleagues, and the community, and to the profession. So normally, and I think we spoke about it last week or the week before, when we spoke about communication as well. On the code of ethics, it's like ourselves we don't do an oath. You know, after you guys finish here, you don't stand up and swear on the Bible that you won't do no harm, or any other book, but the doctors do, nurses do, RNs, when they finish, they actually get sworn in. So they, yeah, so lawyers do. So there's some professions where people actually make an oath. We don't have an oath, but we have a code of conduct, which is that code of conduct there. And even though we might not be swearing on it, it's still our responsibility because it's under the law. But ethics is also, it's within ourselves. It's, you know, if you drive past somebody, or you sit at the swimming pool and a child is busy drowning, just because it's not your child, you're not going to not help, you know. or you drive past somebody, there's a big accident, when you have, sort of a responsibility, if you've done first aid, that you will stop and help. It's kind of like you're not going to just keep driving. If you haven't done first aid and you don't know what to do, you will still stop and at least call 000, and get the ball rolling, even though you might not be able to save that person's life by doing resuscitation because you don't know how. But it's that code of ethics where you sort of in your heart, you make a commitment to yourself. I will do no harm. I will do my best. I will give my best to who am I looking after little kids, other people's kids, opening your house for that. That is awesome. That's like your code of ethics is much higher than mine because I won't do that. I couldn't look after other people's naughty kids. I know, I have heard for that there are people out there that are struggling, that there are kids out there that do not have homes. And it's really awful, But we can't fight every battle, can we? We have to choose our battles, you know. My son he's a vegan and he is a big soldier on for the poor bunnies and the cows and the pigs, and he sent me videos of these poor pigs that are getting treated awfully, and I'm like, oh, I don't like to see that. I'll never eat pig again, but I have other battles. I fight other battles. I fight for nurses' rights. I fight for equal opportunities. I fight for higher ratios, and I will go and stand in the street and fight for that. I fight for drug support. I have other battles. I've chosen my battles, and we all choose our battles. We cannot fight every single battle, and we cannot also keep each other liable to fight our battles for each other. We have to choose. We have to help bearing the burden. Otherwise, it becomes too much for one person, isn't it? So, and that's basically our code of ethics, is these battles that we feel very passionate about as well. So identify our scope and our nature of our own ethical responsibility, personal ethical dilemmas, deciding whether to receive a gift from a grateful client. I worked with an old girl in the UK. She was 100 years old. She before I left for the UK coming year, I told her I'm going to Australia, and she's like, oh, I visited Australia in 1935, and I got on this bus, and we went all the way from Brisbane to Cairns, and I had the most fun in my life. She was an old spinster, so she never got married. She was just incredible, this old girl, and she gave me the most beautiful bangle, and she's like, oh, I really want you to have this. I got this when and I think it was actually like an Aborigine art thing that, I didn't know it then, but thinking back now. And, I didn't have the heart to say to her, no, I can't take this. It's against the code of conduct at the home I was working. So I took it. But I took it to the nurse, and I said to the nurse, well, could you just lock this in the medicine cabinet or in your thing, because I didn't want to rob her from the joy to give me something. And, but sometimes it's like that. Your clients might give you something. But if Nan gives you her wedding ring and say, oh, I really want you to have this, and like, well, what do you do? So it's good to find a drawer somewhere, maybe in the house or in a spare room, and go and put the things in that drawer. I also say, don't rob them from the joy of giving you something, because they don't have much joy, do they? And sometimes they love you so much that they want to give you things. But just be careful, put it somewhere and write it in the notes. Grandma gave me this, I have put it in the store, I put it in there in another place. Write it in the notes. So if the kids come around and say, that's going, because you know what, if she tries to give you her ring, she's probably going to try to give it to somebody else, and they might not have the same kind of ethics than what you have, and they might take it, and then you both get into trouble because you knew she was trying to give the ring away, and then the kids come around and they look for the ring, and then who's taken it? Then that person's dead, no, nobody's taken it. So if you take it and you then be accountable for it, put it in the notes, and then go and put it somewhere else in a safe place, where the kids can access it later, then you be accountable to that. Somebody's come up on, yeah, I always have to just make sure it's not a weirdo. The other day I had a weirdo on here. Just came in and then left again, and I don't know who it was. Oh, no, there's no one there. That's why I have a sound on there when somebody comes in. So, you know, but there's some things that we are allowed to take. We are allowed to take a box of chocolates, and we are allowed to take a bunch of flowers. There's no, you know, it's not against the rules in most companies to get that. But you're not allowed to take money. You're not allowed to take jewelry. You're not allowed to take personal artifacts, you know. So just be aware of that. Decide how to respond to somebody if they say, oh, could you come and eat dinner with me on Sunday? It's not your working hours. I want you to meet my son. Oh. Or to set you up, you know. Or something, you know, like, oh, yeah, I'm not really allowed to do that. Sorry, Lovey, I can't do that. You know, you can't have a personal relationship with your client after hours. You can't be taking her to, you know, you finish work at 4 and she says, oh, could you take me at 5 o'clock to go see a movie? You know, I'll pay for your movie ticket too. You can't, you know, you just can't. It has to stay within your working hours, and you need to keep it as an professional relationship, you know. And that's why it's also, and we talk about conflict of interest a bit later, but it's a conflict of interest for us to look after people we know, or our house friends or family members. You know, it's actually a conflict. Because of that reason, you might then do more for them than what you will do for your general clients, you know. So somebody, we had an old guy, he loves smoking, and he used to say, oh, he smuggles it in, and he said, have you got a lighter for me? No, I don't. Come on, man, you have a lighter. Where are you going to smoke? No, I know all the spots where the cameras are not. So he's already checked it out. He knows. If he can only get hold of that lighter, you know. No, sorry, mate. So decided whether your client's dishonesty, they're dishonest about Centrelink, they're doing claims there, and you have to sort of report that. Deciding if your co-workers inappropriate with resources. I had a friend that to take the black bags, rolls of black bags home. Just never bought black bags. I saw her the one day, never knew it, but the one day I saw, she grabbed the whole roll of black bags, threw in a bag. I go, you know, why you do that? Oh no, I never buy black bags. I always take black bags from you. Why? It's only $3. Really? If you get caught, you lose your job. Is that really worth it? $3? You know? I'll buy you some black bags. Next time I go to do my shopping, I'll include a bag of black bags for you. So, meets ethical requirements according to workplace policies, protocols, scope of practice. So, scope of practice or scope of role is we seek regular support from a supervisor in situations that or bring any situations to the attention of our team leader. So as I say, we assistant in nurses, so we assist the nurses first. They are our biggest responsibility because jointly we care for the client's needs. Okay, the clients is our main responsibility, but the RNs and the ENs are the ones that have the scope of practice to assist us, and you know, and make decisions that we are not allowed to do. So we can, if we work very closely with them, it helps us to maintain a good ethical responsibility towards our clients. Without their help, we cannot care for the client by ourselves. And that's why we are responsible. We assistant to them first, and jointly we look after our clients. Seek advice from our colleagues about what is good. Like a good shepherd, we're not allowed to talk to the clients, family members, we're not allowed. When you go work in the community, you probably will be allowed to, you know, get in contact. But like if a resident needs slippers, or need nighties. We're not allowed to call them family members and say, oh, could you please bring mum a pair of slippers? Hers are really rotten, We have to tell the RN and she's allowed to call them. Sometimes people are public trustees and that's a real difficult situation because then it's a whole process to actually get some money to actually buy things for them. Look for your professional guidelines or scope of practice. Seek to have your position description clarified. When you apply, most jobs you get a whole heap of papers and they say sign here, and then they take it all back instead of giving it to you to get a good read over before they take it all back. Don't just think, oh, it's all the same. You really go read between the lines. I've been caught like that, where I've got a contract and I thought, oh, it's just the same as everywhere else. I signed it and went away. And when I started working at this place, they let me know, oh, you meant to be having the indemnity insurance. I said, what? Yeah, you signed the contract. It was in there. I said, really, have I? So I have to go back to the contract. Oh, and it was in there and I didn't see it. And I didn't take note of it. And then and it was my responsibility to take care of that. So I had to rush around to get this insurance. And it was not an easy thing because you have to try to get into a group insurance. Otherwise, it's a fortune, but it's not easy, or it's not impossible to do, but it's still something that I didn't know I have to do, and I signed for it that I would. So be aware that sometimes things are in there. Seek to have competencies assessed and recognized. So if you are like getting your qualification here, maybe in the future this qualification changes and it gets upgraded and stuff, you can then actually have this qualification written over or RPL into the new qualification if you're already working in the industry. So, to keep up to date, maybe you want to use it as a stepping stone to, are you coming into class?
No, I was come see if I can get the book and I'll jump on later.
Okay, no worries. We can grab it here.
Yeah, I'll jump on them later.
Okay.
I have to come in and see you. Do you need those other ones that we've already finished?
If you finish with it, yes. Yeah. There you go.
Alright, and that's all I need.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. No worries.
All right.
Later.
See you later. Yeah, no worries. Oh, it's all messed up. Anyway, hope I got all of it. Yeah. So also when you go and do diploma or Cert 4, a lot of the units that we are doing here at the moment some of them can be credited. So some diplomas, community health diplomas, there's diversity, definitely legally and ethically one is also in the Cert 4s and in the diplomas. There's other ones anyways, I forget that, like the palliative care ones, workplace and safety, yeah. So some of them can be credited, so just be aware that you start a new course and then it's nice to have some of the units be credited, at least your workload is a little bit less then. Ensure that major work activities are accurate and documented and recorded correctly. Consult with representatives such as unions, professional bodies regarding appropriateness of your job role. So the National Code of Conduct, I've just pulled out a few things that's really important for us. On the Code 1, a healthcare worker must provide healthcare service in safe and ethical manner. Code of 1.2, without limitation, subclause or healthcare worker must comply with the following. I've just ticked a few of them. On A, healthcare worker must maintain the necessary competency for our field of practice. As I said earlier, code of practice is really, really important. If you do not have the qualification, don't do something, okay? You're not meant to give medication, even self-medication, without the certificate to say that you are. Not meant to do wound care without the, and it's not impossible to get the self-care medication certificates, online certificate, you can do it in a couple of hours. There is, but that also only allows you to do self medication, not the actual full-on medication, feeding somebody medication. And through the code of conduct, it comes out a bit further down why. So you have to be competent in your field of practice. You have to not provide healthcare of a type that is outside your experience or framework, and provide services that you are not qualified to provide. It's in the scope of practice. Healthcare worker must have sound understanding of possible adverse interactions between therapies, treatments that are being provided, prescribed, and any other medication or treatment. Whenever prescribed or not, that he or she or should be aware that the client, what the client are taking or receiving, and advise the client of these interactions. Now, this is where the problem lies. If you give medication to somebody and you do not know what the side effects on that medication are, or if the client is possibly going to have a reaction to that medication, you're not aware of that, you're not meant to do it, because you meant to know if a medication has a side effect. Okay. Do you think you would know? No, you would not. Not through a self-medication course. It doesn't tell you this medication should not be taken with that medication. This medication should not be taken with alcohol. This medication could have the person have seizures. This medication could give a person a rash, or could have a somebody could be a former allergic reaction to something. Sometimes allergic reactions, you can be fine. A bee can sting you like 10 times. And the 11th time a bee stings you, you swell up and you can't breathe. Sometimes reactions or adverse events happens, even though somebody might not have been identified to have an allergy to something, they can develop an allergy, for some other strange reason somebody's body can react. And if you don't know that, oh, this is a reaction because of the medication I've just given to this person, and you don't know that that is that medication side effect, you're not meant to be given that medication. So really, like, I understand 90% of the companies out there in home care force people to do self-medication. And get it in writing. Make sure you have it in writing. And if you do give people medication, especially on a regular basis, go and study the effects of that medication. Educate yourself on it. It's not hard. Just put that medication's name onto Google and it'll tell you.
So, Mama, that if you're in the community and you're doing that thing, that medication, you say you put it in writing too?
Yes. So if your supervisor let you know and say to you, could you? I'm running late. Could you give Mrs. Jones her medication today because she's not coming? She phoned you, and you go, what? Never done that before. I'm worried. I'm scared to do that. Could you just SMS me how to do it? Just get her to put it in an SMS,
Email.
or email or something that she's told you to do that. Some sort of a proof that you've been informed to do it. I know that with most companies, they make you sign in 3 or 4 places to make sure that you've done it correctly. But there's been recent cases in Mackay that I've heard about where there's been medication mishaps. People have been giving them wrong medication at the wrong time, too many medications given too short periods of each other. So like if some medications you can only take every 6 hours, like even paracetamol. You can take paracetamol only 4 or 5 hours apart from each other. You're only allowed to take a certain amount of paracetamol in one day. Paracetamol is actually a horrible drug. It's a horrible drug. If you can get kidney failure from paracetamol and you die a slow, awful, painful death. Okay, you can overdose on it.
When Mum was in ICU, because the late nurse that I was with Mum, she's watched a lot of people go through there that have tried to, OD on pills. and she said the worst ones that will actually kill you is Panadol.
Yeah.
The worst one you can OD on is Panadol. It will actually kill
Yeah.
you. All these other, you know, like
Paramax
Seroquel
also,
and all
yeah.
that sort of like strong pain pills, they won't kill you. They'll just slow you down and stuff everything
Yeah.
up for a little while, but it's 9 times out of 10 fixable.
Yeah.
So Panadol will kill you.
Panadol's not fixable. My sister's boy overdosed on paracetamol. He's done permanent kidney damage. He's now have to have dialysis and everything. It's a slow, painful death. And if you give somebody paracetamol, you think, oh, it's innocent, I can just give a couple of paracetamol. The next person comes on duty and I'll give her a couple of paracetamols, not taking in account that she's already had it. And in one day she gets 6 lots of paracetamol. She's overdosed in that day. Aspirin. Kids gets, there's a syndrome that comes from Disprin. So you cannot give a child Disprin, you know, just as innocent as it sounds. Like you can buy it over the counter, there's no problem, but you can't. Some medications, you know, have adverse effects on people. So you really need to educate yourself. One of my students was saying the other day, one of her clients takes 2 or 3 different sleeping tablets. She was saying the sleeping tablets, and she gives these tablets to him every day, and he sleeps all the time, and she can't wake him, and they've been trying to go back to mental health to fix it and whatever. I said, what? Those are all sleeping tablets. Seroquel and you know, the whole, like, poor person. Can't get him off the, you know, sleeping all the time.
And sometimes sleeping tablets don't really make you sleep, they make you awake.
Sometimes it can have the opposite effect, you know, but like, you know, not knowing what is these tablets I'm giving him. I have no idea what these tablets are, I'm just giving it to him. You know, don't see a doctor, seeing a psychiatrist, and then seeing another psychiatrist, and then this one's giving him this script, and another one's giving him another script, and things I just get mixed up. Sometimes people, my friend was a doctor. She's a doctor, she's in Charter Towers now, but she used to be at the base. She used to say, when people come in, especially the old people, they come in, the first thing she always used to do was take all their medication and have a review, because they quite often would have medication that are against, yeah, but because they land up having so many different scripts from different people, some of the medication are working against each other, and there's no proper record keeping except for eHealth, and a lot of doctors are not actually on there. A lot of people are against the fact that the records should be made public, you know, or should be accessible for all healthcare workers. They should be, but some doctors are not, and they're not.
Have a caucus so that they could
But
discuss
it has been proposed, and it's been in the pipeline for a little while, and it's been give and take on that, and a lot of people are resisting it because of privacy, you know. So because RN would be able to log in there. You see, if you're an addict, you can go from one doctor to the next doctor to the next doctor, and you know, if there's no information between the doctors, then you can get as much as you do, you know. Yeah, put yourself out. So, so also being a healthcare worker must provide healthcare service in a manner that's culturally sensitive and the needs of their clients. On the second act there, healthcare worker must obtain consent. Always ask. Even if you just brush their teeth, you ask. Now, I'm not saying be patronizing if somebody can't talk, but you're still going to get permission by them nodding their head, you know. But don't tease somebody. I've heard people tease people just, you know, because they're demented and, darling, do you want to do this? And they know, obviously, the person can't respond, you know. That's a different story, you know, still, but you need to inform clients. Always, it's the thing is with the dementia, some acquired brain injuries, people, they say no when they mean yes. So you always go like, you don't go, do you want to go to the toilet? You go, come on, love, let's go to the toilet. You sort of inform them. And if they don't resist, then you're able to take them. But the consent is in that they don't resist. But you still inform them. If you wash somebody's face, inform them. I'm going to wash your face now. I'm going to wash your back now. Do it step by step by step, because most of the clients we care for are mentally disabled. You know, there's a large majority of them that are mentally disabled. So we do it in small steps and informing. You're not walking in the room and blah the whole thing you're going to do and then think you've informed them, you know, because you give them a fright as well if you don't warn them, like, you know, and give them, you just come, you know, okay, I'm going to come and give you a quick shower now, and you go in and you start taking her shirt off. She might not have understood what you said or might not have heard you properly, and then she starts fighting with you because you're trying to take her clothes off and she doesn't know what you're doing, you know. So we have to just always inform them. Healthcare worker number 4 must report any concerns of the conduct of other healthcare workers. It's under our code of conduct. We have an ethical and legal responsibility to report on people that break the rules. On 5, I've picked some out. I haven't gone in much detail. Yeah. Well, you know, yeah, but also don't be a snitch all the time. You know, I mean, obviously you're gonna only report things that are, you know, really like abuse or something. You're not gonna snitch on somebody because they didn't pick a pad up. You know, you're not gonna be petty. You're gonna report something that's genuine. You know, and that is a legal responsibility to, and which those things are the abuse or, you know, sexual misconduct or stealing stuff or, you know. 6, a healthcare worker to adopt a standard of precautions for infection control, which is really important, and we are getting the focus on that all the time. We have a legal responsibility to wash our hands, you know. Healthcare worker diagnosed with an infectious medical condition, you're not allowed to work if you are sick. Actually, you're breaking the law if you do. And this is not a new law, and it hasn't come in this year.
Especially now with the COVID thing, if it's like fevers.
It's always been a law, and we all have always ignored it, you know, sort of thing. Healthcare worker to with certain mental or physical impairments, you're not allowed to work in the industry if you are disabled yourself. You can't. If you've got autism and you try to go into a client's house and they are, you know, loud and start throwing things around, and how are you going to deal with that if you can't manage, you know, you can't deal with sounds and you are sensitive to things, and how are you going to deal with somebody coming at you with a wheelchair leg or, you know, a knife if you are not mentally able to suss the situation out and make a plan without putting yourself in harm or that person in harm? You need to really have your wits about it. You know, you really need to be your best self working with people with mental disabilities, especially dementia. You cannot work in dementia when you are a sweet mess. You can't. You know, you can't look after people like that. They'll pick up on it. And they will really, their little wheels come off if, you know, if you are not your best self, if you're not in control of yourself. Healthcare worker must not financially exploit any client's 12. So I haven't done all of them, but all of them does apply to us. Okay, and it's important that we sort of just highlight some of them. Protect your client's rights. Let's have a break. It's 11 o'clock. Whew. Any questions? Let's pause there for a second. You know what? Oops. I never shared the screen with the poor online people. They've just been looking at me all along. No, there's no one on there, but I recorded it, so oops.
And that other girl said she was just.
Yeah, that's okay, because what I will do, I will email you the slides. I'll just send the slides. And Yeah, I'm sharing it from now. Oops. Okay. Sorry, recorded people. You are missing out or have missed out so far. Okay, I will try to get the slides in on the recording anyway. I'll see if I can do it. Okay, protect the rights of your clients. So part of our ethical responsibilities is also to protect our clients' rights. These could be in our accelerated standards, so it could be an industry code of practice. It can be in our organization service standards. It could be in international and national charters or in legislation. There's section on discrimination. So with all anti-discrimination legislation, that includes the Aged Care Discrimination Act 2004. Try to develop cultural sensitivity. This means to understand the beliefs of your clients and the cultures, and also what it means to accept them. So in the confidentiality and duty of care, this is in this code of practice, but on 14 is section on confidentiality and duty of care. So healthcare workers to comply with relevant privacy laws, the Privacy Act 1988 and Information Privacy Act 2009. The only situation where the private information can be disclosed is where there's a serious threat or risk to the client or others. Other than that, the client may choose whether they disclose this information, and by choice only. So because we work in healthcare services, obviously sometimes we might face a situation where the client might want to harm themselves. So, but you have to just inform them that I am going to call 000 now, because it's outside my scope of knowledge or my ability to help you with this matter. So I'm going to call for help. Recognize the potential and ethical issues and dilemmas and discuss that with the appropriate person. So as I said earlier about conflict of interest, so using our work time to sort out our personal matters, take credit for other people's work, harass our colleagues or our clients, any bullying, personal relationships with our clients or our colleagues, confidentiality of information, malpractice, and also not consenting about care. Those are all ethical dilemmas we might face. I know, like places like a Good Shepherd Lodge, and I think in a lot of other companies, it's like that. If you work with your sister, you're not allowed to work in the same area. If you, look after, if Nan is in the, in the facility, you're not really allowed to look after her. So they'll put you in a different area. Recognize your own personal values and attitudes and take into account to ensure non-judgmental practice. Values are the principles and standards and qualities that an individual group or a group of people hold to high regard. These values guide the way we live our lives and decisions we make. A value may be defined as something that we hold dear. Those things qualifies which we are considered to be of worth. Use effective problem-solving techniques when exposing completing value systems. So in the work environment, you may be faced by ethical dilemmas, and you may be torn between the needs and the desires of your client and your personal beliefs. Like I heard recently about a young lady that was, she was sexually molested by her uncle, and the person that was caring for her or that knew her, she went to the chemist to get the morning after tablet first, taking her to the hospital. And the pharmacist refused because he's a pro-life person. So, as I quite often say in this class, that I'm pro-life, but I haven't walked in the shoes of somebody else, and I certainly won't make that call for that person. That is not my decision to make. And hopefully I will never have to be in that situation where I have to make a decision that is against my own values. we all have the right to have our own values, but we cannot impose our values on others. You know, we cannot enforce our values on other people. When there's a conflict of values, you are faced with the decision over which is the most important. Remember, your client's health and safety should always be your number one concern. You know, if your client, if I was a doctor with a pro-life attitude or pro-life belief, and my client would come to me and say, you know, I want abortion, and I say, no, I'm sorry, I'm pro-life, I don't believe that is right, so I'm not going to do it, and that client is going to harm herself and do something to herself in the process, then I can be sued as a doctor because I haven't taken duty of care for that client. I need to refer that client. You can't then just cut her off or refuse. Of course, there's place for your own values and beliefs, but you can refer, you're not alone in it. You have teammates, you have people that you look after. I was just talking to somebody yesterday and she was, oh, these poor old women and old people that lying there and they don't feed themselves, and it's, not like and a lot of care workers feel like that, and I understand. I've been in care for many, many years. I know that there are people that lie there and don't say a word, and they have no quality for life, but they still have the will to live. They still want to eat, and it's not my right to say, oh, you won't treat your dog like that, you know or and besides, when it comes to euthanasia, it's not as simple as just because grandma's lying there that you have the right to decide whether she lives or not. It's only people that make that decision themselves, and they have to be able to take the medication themselves in a place like in uh, where is it, Victoria, where it's legal. So they still need to be able to make that decision themselves. They need to go to the chemist. They need to pick up the lock box with the medication in, and they need to be administered themselves. It cannot be administered on their behalf. So there are laws and regulations around it. So it's not as simple as that. And even if pro-life, if euthanasia becomes, legal in more states, it still hasn't changed the fact that there's going to be old people lying there that, are lying like that for 10 years and have no quality of life. It's not going to affect them. That's still going to be a thing. It's not going to change that. So, and those are completing values. Those are hard things we deal with and we have to face and we have to deal with. But I put human life in higher regard to animals' life. I always have a little bit of a giggle at my son as they will fight for the dolphins, but they won't fight for the unborn babies, I'm like, okay, I put human life in high regard. It's my son. I love him dearly, and I will have discussions with him in a decent way, And if he becomes excited about it, I say, okay, it's fine. Doesn't matter, We all have our beliefs, and and I respect you. I respect you for having a stand. I take my hat off. I like it when people have a firm belief, even if it's opposing my belief. It shows integrity. It shows a purpose. If somebody believes in something, even though it might be opposing to what I believe in, I still respect that. So, yeah, that might be an issue for us. So recognize unethical conduct and report. Unethical conduct is gossip about our clients and social behavior, a social situation. Behavior is speaking, discriminating,
Discrimination.
no, that word, discriminatory manner towards others, arguing in front of our clients, talking over our clients while we're working, with them. They in bed, they're lying in front of us, and we're busy talking to each other about something sensitive, and like making as if the client's not there, Include them. I mean, it doesn't mean we can't talk to each other. It just means include them. We have a lady, she's got MS, and she comes occasionally in respite, and she loves it when we tell stories about what we've done this weekend, because we're actually including her. We bring our lives to her as, give her a view of what's outside, where she cannot go anymore, where she cannot be. So she enjoys that. She's like, oh, what did you? She will even go, what did you do last weekend? And we tell each other, or we talk and we include her, and she loves that. So as long as you include them in conversations, not talking over them. Recognize the potential actual conflicts and of interest and take appropriate action. Conflicts of interest may be a situation where you have the ability to make a decision that could potentially benefit the client, but could also impact on yourself. Any situation where influences impact on the ability to perform your job or professional standard and is a conflict of interest. A situation where there is a potential to take advantage of the client. This can lead to doubt over the ability to perform your job effectively. So if you're ever in a situation where you don't know and you don't, things are not clear cut, that's why we have supervisors. We can call for help. We can say, look, I'm in a conflict of interest situation. I don't know how to deal with it, and call for help. So managing this, declare these conflict of interest, like looking after Nan, declare like, this is actually my Nan, or this is my Nan's sister, or this, declare that to your company that they know. Keep those boundaries clear, You cannot, years ago, I looked after an old lady in a care home, and she was like, she really loved me, and she really just wanted to set me up with her son, and her son was a paraplegic in another town, but they were filthy rich. They were like really, really rich, and she wanted me to, like these Molson Boone storybooks. It sounded like that. For one, I could never be with somebody that I don't like just for the money. It's not gonna work. So but those are professional boundaries. We have to keep those clear. Just one of my students bought a magazine in on Monday of actually a Filipino lady that married an Aussie guy, and she poisoned him. And she just married him for his money, and then he went, like, she gave him some of her medication that she knew was going to work against his medication. And it was one of these or these magazines, and she bought the whole article in and to show us about this. There's strange people out there, aren't they? Yeah, anyway, just marry this old boy so he can die off and I can get his money, My sister did that. You, I went like, you, if he's not handsome, seriously.
It's for the company rather than,
Oh no, really?
it's not the quantity.
And then he never kicks the bucket and he keeps hanging in there, and you have to wipe his bum. No, thank you. So how to act in receiving a gift, how contacts functions, how contracts functions, yeah. How services should be delivered. And contributing to the workplace, identify situations where we could improve the legal and ethical responsibilities. Be proactive in sharing feedback to our colleagues, identify opportunities to contribute to reviews and development of policies and procedures. So situations in the workplace where we can improve, we have the HK standards as opportunities, not just to improve, but also opportunities that we have to uphold as quality standards, which is the dignity and choice that sits in the middle of the wheel there. And dignity of choice, the rest of the standards hang on. If we do not put our clients' dignity and choice as number one, all of the standards, we fail all the standards. And these standards are the standards that the consumer watchdog will look at, whether we are maintaining this. And these are the, their choice, ongoing assessment and planning, personal care and clinical care, the quality of that, the quality of services for daily living, though those are the, cleaning and feeding and all of those. service environment, feedbacks and complaints, human resources, and organization governance. So all of these standards, all 8 of them, hangs onto the dignity of choice. And if their dignity is, and they have, as consumers, they have input and right to input on any of the standards. So they can have part or be part of organization governance, as clients, and that's what the standards require. So if there's a complaint that goes to the watchdog, consumer watchdog about that, and that they don't know where their money goes, they want to know, and they have the right to know. So they have, since the standards came out last year in September, a lot of the aged care facilities have formed little groups of the elderly community to be involved in that they actually open the books to them and show them what they're doing with their money. There are still some companies that are running under the, like, or they linked to some other church, and they are non-profit, and the funds are, it's not clear because they've got so many different sections to this non-fund, what's it called, non-profit section, that it's not so clear. But the union also help us with that, because the thing is, where that affects us, if funds are not going back into the care home, we don't have proper equipment, we don't have proper PPE, we don't have, the home is not suitable, it's broken, and there's things that are not right. That affects the way we work, and it affects how, we can help our clients, and it affects our clients. So we, it's important, and it's amazing. These standards have been a part of the standards in the UK for many years. Before I came to Australia, we've been exposed to it. And last year, a lot of the care home managers and people went over across to the UK to go and look at what they are doing there, came back with the aged care commission running, and have looked, then compile, making the new standards and making sure that the new standards are including the clients. And it's changed the wording from where before in the 80s they used to be patients, and then they became residents, and then later on they became clients. I'm still a bit stuck on clients, but the new description now is consumers or customers. It does change the ball game in the sense of that the customer is always right. But there is also a part of that, part of the standards is their responsibilities and rights. So they do have responsibilities to inform us of the correct information, to provide us with a safe environment to work in, to treat us with respect. It's not just all rights. There are some responsibilities to it. So identifying, improvements spelled wrong. Oh, the TS is in the back there. Improvements in work practices. If you spot a particular legal and ethical issue that are reoccurring in your workplace, you should endeavor to improve your work practices and remove or mitigate to these issues. The exact nature of your work practices that could be removed will depend on your workplace environment. So it all depends on that. It's all about sharing feedback, and once one of your greatest resources in progression is your experience. When you have dealt with ethical issues, share that experience as lessons learned with your colleagues and your supervisors. This may you may recognize a colleague in a situation similar to what you have dealt with in the past, and this is the perfect time that you share these experiences and help them deal with theirs. So, it's also less offending if you can go to somebody and say, look, for instance, like when I Good Shepherd the one day, this was quite a few new care workers started, and they kept putting the stand-up lifters in front of the fire extinguishers, and they obviously, I mean, it's part of our induction and it's in there in the induction paperwork, but it's not always set out as clear as that. But going to somebody and say, don't put the lifter there, they get offended, because you're telling them not to do something. So, just and approaching somebody in a different manner by saying, that you can get a fine. It's $3,000 fine if you obstruct fire exit or fire extinguisher. It is a different approach. It's all an approach. When you approach your colleagues and you say, that I've been in this situation and, or I've heard about a situation where somebody actually got sued for doing that. Just so you know, you're actually breaking the law, or it's a potential that you can be harmed through the situation. In some of the scenarios we are going to be talking in part B and C, there are scenarios where people are gossiping and stuff like that. So, where you, there's been beginning of last year, there was 3 care workers from a care facility in Mackay, and they went Northern Beaches and they were sitting in Northern Beaches talking about the client. And the client's granddaughter was sitting in the table next to them, behind them. And all 3 of them lost their jobs and they were sued as well. So, things like that happen. So, when you get your colleagues doing something, there are things that go wrong. And there's another incident where a care worker just this year was taking a client out to the pokies on Friday night, and she gambled 35,000 of his money, $35,000 of his money on the pokies. It actually went to court. She paid it back before she got to court, and she had money to pay it back. Where she got that from? Somebody must have helped her. But it was all over the news. It was, yeah, Mackay, yeah. Care worker from NDIS, because the NDIS clients can and they're allowed to go out to dinner and do things that they want to do. If they want to go to the pokies or play keno or whatever, they're allowed to,
Whatever
So
their right is, isn't it? It's whatever they want to do. Isn't
whatever they want to do, that's it, And if you can join in, I can join in and have fun with them. And
I'm always
No.
curious about, like, I've had a lady, a friend of mine who's also a support worker, and then she sort of cracked the shits with it, saying, well, what happens if he wants to go to the strippers? Client wants to go to the strippers. I just thought that was an absolute piss. But, well, see you later.
yeah, bit of a tricky situation. I mean, of course they can do what they can do.
No, it's not really
But-
tricky at all. It's his decision. It's either right or wrong. It's his decision. It's not yours.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a conflict of interest for you as an individual, That's what I mean with tricky. I mean, of course, you're gonna then say to him, well, mate, you get here's the phone book, you sort it out, you can get a taxi.
My nephew does.
I'm not gonna go.
And he's the one that did the homes and stuff, and his carer, when they go out, the carer will stay outside while he goes inside. So the carer will stay there for the whole full time that he's there with.
Same as the option.
Sounds pretty
That's what they said to me.
Yeah.
My
Carer
client
will
wants to
then
go
go,
to
when
pub.
he's ready, he'll come down
You
and they'll go home.
can take it
That's
to the
fine,
pub,
great.
you can stay outside.
Yeah.
Or you can say catch a
Yeah,
taxi.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's tricky. You need to make the decision. Is the client then safe? You'll have to hand him over into somebody else's care when they go in, if they're not capable. And but yeah, by all means, you're not forced to go in. It's not that's not part of your job description. There's a young lady. She's from Africa, dark lady. She started working in one of the support companies here. And I just heard about her the other day, poor darling. And she went into a home with a younger adult, and he said to her, "Oh, there, my Willy Walker's a packet of condoms. Can you bring those to me?" And she like, "No, I'll go get the packet of condoms." Brought it to him, and he said, "Oh, now can you put it on?" It's like, really? Now you come from a third world country. You are already feel very, very lucky to be here. You have no understanding or background of what's the go here. Maybe in the country that you are from is very corrupt and things you are enforced to do things that and whatever, and you find yourself in a situation like that. Poor girl. Luckily for her, there was another care worker that arrived just in time and said, "Oh, no, no, you don't have to do that. That's not part of your job." Well, thanks for saying, warning me before the time that that might happen, you know. And some of the clients can actually take advantage of that, of situations when you're new and you don't know. So many times seen that, especially in the dementia ward. They know, man, they know. They spot you off a distance if you are a sucker. They know that I can get away with it. Yeah, I'm going to take her for a ride. We had one old boy that used to always say, I only want girls, I only want girls. And then he would also get inappropriate with the women. And yeah, and the young girls, poor young girls, you know, going into his room. It's sexual harassment. Doesn't matter whether he's disabled, demented or not. You know, it's still sexual harassment. We've had the police arriving at dementia ward coming to pick up demented old men that have beat women out in the courtyard because the policeman's wife across the road saw him beat the old girl outside, and you know, and he's locked up in the police car, and we go, oh, he's demented, you can't, still can't do that, you know. The poor old boy died in his chair. He was drugged up until the day he died because he hit the wrong woman at the wrong place and the wrong person saw it, you know. So it doesn't mean it's not, you know, it's whether somebody's demented or somebody has got the brain injury and they break the law, they still break the law. Just if you're going to let somebody like that go get away with it, then you're going to set the precedent for somebody who's under the influence that might not remember to get away with it, you know. So there has to be consequences, and there are consequences. And sadly, sometimes it's chemical constraint. We had an old boy in the UK did the same thing. When the old girls would go to sleep, he used to wander around, and this one old girl, she was bedfast, and she said, he comes in here at night and he touches me. And then her family went, and he got chemically constrained. He got chemically castrated, and they put I don't know who, watchdog, whoever assigned a care worker 24 hours to him. He was in the care home, but there was somebody sitting in front of his door every day, 24 hours was that person's job. Oh, tedious job. I don't want a job like that, but that person was watching him 24 hours just because he was sexually harassing other old girls, vulnerable old people. So just because you're old and demented does not mean there's not consequences. The same is whether you've got a mental disability and you know you break the law. There are consequences. It's maybe not sending to jail. One of my students yesterday was saying he looks after a client that's got schizophrenia and dementia and all sorts, and this person he's been sent. There's apparently, I think there's a asylum somewhere, Charter Towers or somewhere, I think there's was somewhere, and he's been sent there. There's another horrendous facility down in Brisbane as well, and he was given the choice. He goes mental health most of the time, and then he's at home for weekends, and somebody came and actually put photos up and say, mate, this is what you have now. If you carry on with this behavior, you're going to lose all of this, and all you're going to have left is going here. Do you want to go here? And he said that has really pulled this client in. He's now in his best behavior, and he keeps saying, I'm good now, I'm good now, you know, because he realized what he can lose. And there are places where there is consequences. You can only go that far, you know. And yeah, and like I've said so many times, waiting for the day where a care worker gets slapped and hit her head on the floor and die, and then they'll realize that we shouldn't be going out alone to some of these people. You know, we shouldn't be put in situations where we are putting our own lives at risk, because it's actually kind of expected that we take a slap, you know, kind of like, oh, you know, the ambulance says, violence won't be tolerated. At the hospital's a big banner, violence won't be tolerated. But it's expected from us to take a step, to take it on the cheek. So, and it does not make it right. And the only way we can really, in a duty of care perspective or in a honorable way, counter that is through numbers, is with ratios in place where there's a law that says when somebody is doing this, this, and this, they should have 2 carers with them or 3 carers with them. You know, when there should be ratios in place. At the moment, there's no ratios in Australia. We're lucky with NDIS that there's so much money in NDIS that we can have one-on-one care. That doesn't exist in aged care. You have no ratios in aged care, and some days at Good Shepherd Lodge, we are 1 to 15, 1 to 18. That's your ratio, you know, but they count the cleaners on the floor, and they count the nurses in the nursing station, and they count, you know, the occupational therapists and the DTs and all of them in as part of the team. But it's actually just us doing the job. So it's not, my granddaughter was, it's not fair. It's not fair, but it's real. So please watch yourself. Please protect yourself. Please know yourself, know your limits, know when you're tired. You cannot go to work when you're tired, when you're emotional, when you're frustrated. That is when we make mistakes. You might take that slap on a good day, but on the day you have a slight headache and you didn't sleep well, and you know, you just had a big fight with your partner, you go to work, you might slap back. And then you're the one that loses your job. Okay, so please watch yourself. Please look after yourself. Okay, thank you very much. That's the end of it. And if you have any questions, good. All right. All right, questions in part A. Question 1. Make a list of 3 different forms of legislation that applies to our community services. Please take note when you talk about any legislation to add the date of the act. So on page 29 is the 3 pages, page 29 till page 31, I think it is, all the way to the end of the book, is 3 pages full of different types of legislation that are relevant to our work in, you know, working in the healthcare industry. You've got the Queensland Healthcare Workers Code of Conduct that I printed out for you. That is also a type of legislation. It's page 29 till page 31, 3-1. You only have to have 3. So, but remember, if you say Community Service Act 2007, Disability Act 2006, Youth Justice Act 1992. So just write the complete wording of that, but you can choose any 3 that you think is relevant. They all really are, indirectly or directly.
And that's the act, is it?
Yeah, so some of them might not have a date with it, like our the one that I've printed for us, the Queensland Healthcare Workers Code of Conduct does not have a date. So that is just that you just write the full name. But if there is a date behind it, you do write the whole, you know, including the date. Whenever they talk about legislation in any of the units, it includes the whole word of it. Question 2, when working with people, you should all the above. Question 3, depending on the size of your organization, the service procedures and policies protocols may be
A and C.
A and C, yeah, it is definitely existing. It's not existing. Question, so with the ones that are just multiple choice questions, you can just circle the answers. So with question 2, you can just circle the answer, and question 3, just circle the answer. And when you write the answers, you have to use a pen, hey? Don't use a pencil when you submit, yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine for now, but when you submit, okay? Yeah. Question 4 is on page 18. So 2.2, it's down 2.2, it's just above the picture there. 5 situations which you might consider as an ethical issue, and who would you report breaches to? That's not highlighted there. Who do you report to? Supervisor. So whether to accept a gift from somebody, withholding information, stealing, theft, not maintaining personal boundaries, breaching of confidentiality. Those are all ethical issues. Ethical dilemmas. And just report to your supervisor. And just write in your book the question number. So question 4 next to the highlight. Yeah. Okay. And then on your book, you write question 4 next to the highlight. The learner guide where the blue is. Yeah. Then it's easy for you to find it afterwards. Just change the words a little bit. Pick out of it. You don't have to write all of the whole, you know, you can bullet point it shorter. Describe what is a code. You're right. Describe what is a code of ethics. It's on page 16. Code of ethics. Question 6. Always. When do you protect your rights of your clients? Always. Question 7. You should work within your boundaries. True. Question 8 is on page 19. On the ethical dilemma. What is an ethical dilemma and who should you discuss it with? Supervisor. That's not on there, but everything goes to the supervisor. If you at Good Shepherd Lodge, it's an RN or EN. If you're out in the industry, it might be just support coordinator or somebody like that. Quite often the support coordinators are registered RNs or CNs that take those positions up. So they still are RNs. Question 9, describe what is completing values, page 22. So describe and give one example. So describe, so you have to put a little description above, what is it? And then there's a few examples down here, and you have to give one example. Page 22, yeah. Question 10 is on page 24. When reporting unethical conduct, who should you report it to, and what should you be clear about? So always report again to your supervisor or any higher authority, and you should be clear about who was involved, when did it occur, and why do you believe this was unethical? Sometimes if you're out in the community and you may have a support coordinator that are acting unethically, I've had to report RNs and ENs in my life many times. Actually, more times I've reported registered personnel than what I've reported AINs. You may have to report them to the police or, you know, go onto the board or something like that. They're just human. Just because they are RNs doesn't mean they won't make mistakes. Just a couple of years ago, there was a young RN that was using that was a drug, was addicted to drugs, and she was taking some of the morphine and stuff from the clients. She's called out, but there was stories on New South Wales paramedics in the news this year as well about them pethidine and like drugs that they were like didn't use, that they were taking, that they were abusing drugs. There's actually I've read an article a few years ago, and I might not quote it completely correctly, but there's a very high percentage of doctors and professional nurses that are addicted to medications, to drugs, because it's sometimes very easy for them to get it. So, sadly. Discuss what is meant by conflict of interest. So that was question 11 on page 25. So it's where we have to make a decision that may benefit somebody else and we may not be benefited by it. Or just like a simple situation, like you have, have to take care of a family member. That can be a conflict of interest also. Or where you lack, even when you lack confidence, you are, and that isn't a conflict of, that is another conflict of interest you most probably will be facing, is like giving medication and not being confident to do that. You're required to do that and you feel incompetent, you feel worried about it. So that really is a conflict of interest as well, because you know that you'll get into trouble if you don't give it, but you also know that you could get into trouble if you do give it.
All the time when I go to the hospital and I have to have quicksand injections, that I'd rather do it myself. And sometimes they're like, oh, we have to do it. And sometimes they'll let me do it. So I'd rather do it myself, because like I feel like I'm more gentle than they are, and I know how to do it without it hurting. Because I had to do it the whole time I was pregnant, so I did it for 9 months and then a little bit after, and I'm just good at it now.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they go, oh no, you can't.
Yeah,
Because it's yeah. Question 26. Sorry. Question 12 is on page 26. Sorry. So areas that could be improved. So like conducting audits, consulting with staff meetings, reviewing the policies and procedures. So if we want to make any suggestions, normally a company has policies and procedures in that regard, and they go like, okay, you need to make write the suggestion down and put it into a suggestion box. And then that box gets opened occasionally, and then they'll read the suggestions, and then they'll decide whether they want to include it or not. But especially with legal aspects, if you're working with a client and there's, like, for example, this young man that's looking after this guy with the schizophrenia, and he was saying, like, I don't know if it's DBMAS or another organization that was doing the pictures for this man that has been very helpful. And we spoke about yesterday about a suggestion of making a tree and putting apples on the tree, and if the client then misbehaves, he loses the apples. So instead of the incentive of giving stars, there's a visual like a big tree with big red apples, and they fall, oh, you've lost all your apples, so we can't have macas tonight.
I should do that with the kids.
Yeah, it's a reverse one to receiving stars, because we most often are not so keen on losing things than what we are on getting things. For some people, getting things means nothing. So it's like my oldest son is like that. Oh, you can't motivate him with anything. My granddaughter also, I'll give you an ice cream. She wants the ice cream, but she still won't do what you ask her. Question 13, explain the importance of feedback, page 27. Proactive share feedback with colleagues. It tells us when we are doing something well, and it points out where we can improve. And sometimes to see ourselves for the first time as others sees us, like, oh, okay, that's the way they see me. One of my friends once said to me, my husband think that you are, what did she say? Vicious. I think it was what she was, or something. And I thought, oh, okay, that's why nobody looks for trouble with me. That explains it. Because I look vicious. My son said to his preschool teacher, he said to her, "You vicious, but my mom's more vicious than you." I thought, I'll take that, I don't mind. It protects it. I can't see that I'm actually a big softie, you know. I'll cry if you shout at me, so nobody looks for trouble. Question 14. What questions could you ask when reviewing policies? Page 28. Does it reflect a best practice? Can the policy be improved or be an easier way to apply it? Has anyone complained about it? I'm sometimes really amazed at a few things. The fact that people still can write songs after there's so many songs that have already been written, you know, or the fact that we can still come up with new ideas. People can still come up with new ideas after we've already like gone over, but it's actually real, you know. Yeah. Like everything has already been thought of. What else is there? What else can possibly still be invented? Artificial intelligence. Okay, so that's the end of it. Thank you very much, guys. So I'm available every day until 5, or most days until 5. Some days I go at 4 if it's quiet. So if you do need some extra ideas, give me a call, or, you know, I will